Kyle, joined by Keenan, joined by Tim Gray. What's up, fellas?
Tim, you go.
Doing pretty well. Interesting week of
Just
football.
all kinds
so
of
I'm
nodding
excited
we
to
got.
talk about it. Yep.
I cannot wait to talk about
The
it.
Nodding Brothers
My,
podcast.
this was my favorite week. The Nodding Brothers podcast.
The Bobblehead
exactly
podcast.
That's exactly what it
But
is. This was a wild week. This was an insane week. It's been my favorite week, and I thought it was going to be pretty chalk, but as we know, the NFL is anything but chalk. You can't, however you think it's going to go, it's not going to go that way. And I think we can all agree week 3 was all that, and then some. We even got some, like Taylor Swift seems to be the talk of Sunday, even though there was a team that scored 70 points, even though we had some crazy upsets, even though we had some terrible reffing in multiple games. Taylor Swift seems to be the talk, so I'm sure we'll get to that and much else. Keenan, Tim, where would you like to start? We'll start with Tim. Tim, you're the guest. Where would you like to start today?
Before Tim goes, I just want to say, in fairness, Taylor Swift is probably you could argue right now the biggest superstar overall. I'd say the second biggest superstar in the entire world. So makes sense why she's the talk of conversation.
Taylor Swift had more coverage in that game than the Bears did.
Yeah,
The Bears.
So
The Bears are awful. They are just
they're pretty
awful.
bad.
All right, Tim, we start where you want to start, and where is that?
Whatever. Like the game prep, like you wanted me to prepare for. I'm ready to jump right into it.
But what game do you want to start with? You're choosing one.
First one, I'll just go primetime last night. Steelers Raiders. My biggest takeaway watching this game, watch this whole game, and a little confused. 3.5 minutes left. They're down 8, and they decide they're going to kick a field goal. And then they got the leveraging penalty. Then they chew another 1.5 minutes off the clock and then kick the field goal again.
Yeah.
After that, it's like you don't have time anymore to kick this field goal. You have to go for this touchdown. You have 2 minutes.
Yep.
They're getting the ball back, and your defense hasn't been as it was a pretty defensive match, but I'm not convinced that my defense is going to go out there and stop them and not let them get one first down. I thought that was the bad move. At that point, you got 2 minutes left. You got to score, and you got to go for 2. If you don't get it, then you hope to get that field goal. But I don't know. That's my biggest takeaway. It was just confusing.
This is a team that also went for it on 4th and inches and then threw like a bomb to Devontae Adams earlier in the game to break it open, obviously 7-0. So like when you couple that, like, I'm not going to go for it here, but then I'm going to go for it here, like early in the game when you could have done something different. I mean, I'm fine with them going for it on 4th and inches anyway. That I had no problem with that, but you're completely correct. I don't understand why you don't go for it. Because even if that's the case, like what it doesn't make sense is there's still a 1-possession game. I understand you would have had to go into overtime, but if you are fearful again or you believe in your defense, if you don't get it, your defense still has time and you still are on a 1-possession game. I get you go to overtime and instead you wanted to ice it, but like regardless, you would have needed a touchdown to win the game regardless.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It wasn't like the field goal wasn't like you were down 5 already. You kick the field goal and then you have a chance to win it with the field goal. You were down 8, so you're going to 5. So you need to get in the end zone regardless of if you need the 2-point conversion or not. I would have kicked it. I would have not kicked it. I would have gone for it because I felt they couldn't guard Devontae all night.
My only other thought was just decline the penalty and take the 3 points and give them the ball with 3.5 minutes left. But obviously at that point, you're going to take the first down and try to get another touchdown. But once you've committed to chewing that much time off the clock and giving them the ball back with 2 minutes, you got to go for it. You cannot kick at that point. You need to go for it.
I agree.
Yeah, that was an ugly game. It was a weird game. It was equal parts boring and entertaining. But, I mean, you kind of alluded to it, Tim, the leaping call. There were some shaky-ass calls on that last drive. That helmet-to-helmet on Jimmy G. Then the leaping where they pointed it out on the replay. They're like, yeah, you can see his hand. And they showed like 3 different angles. And I couldn't, like, nothing looked off to me. So I don't really know what the hell was going on there. I'm in the minority where I don't usually mind that field goal down 8. if there's what there was at the time, like 3.5 minutes left. I actually don't mind that because I think you do have some breathing room with the defense. It comes down to whether you trust your defense or not, right? But after that, after you get the penalty and you're inside the 10, and you, like Tim said, you're chewing up clock, you got to go take the points after that. For them to kick the field goal after that was just a joke, and that was like we saw on Sunday plenty of times over and over across all these games. There was shaky coaching all over, and that was, that's an example of why maybe McDaniels did not have a good first tenure with the Broncos there. There was just questionable decisions all over. They should have lost that game, 10 different ways, really. So, I mean, the right team ended up losing. But, yeah, I don't really understand the second field goal especially. The first one I could have rocked with. It probably wouldn't have went in favor the way the game was going. But the second one, absolutely. You're that close. Just score the points. And you got a good offense. Like, you got Devontae, you got Josh Jacobs. Jimmy can at least get that done. You know what I mean? So
Jacoby was getting loose in the fourth.
Jacoby looks great. Looks great. I really wish the Pats would have kept him. I very much wish the Pats would have kept him. And who knows? We'll see later on what the whole receiving core
Don't worry, you
like,
got Juju.
For the same contract.
Right? And Juju might be okay. I mean, he started slow with the Chiefs last year. He really did. But, time will tell. But Jacoby looks
we already
great,
had Jacoby
and
established.
He's very sure-handed. I agree.
We had him established in our offense.
I agree. I've been saying for 3 years Jacoby's a problem and is a true threat out there. But for sure. No, yeah.
I know. You've said, I mean, I didn't say he was a problem with that. I just had a problem with Cooper Kupp in the conversation with Jacoby.
You just asked me. Look, all you asked me was if he could do what Cooper Kupp does. A part of me still believes that. Like, ain't like Cooper Kupp is a first ballot Hall of Famer here. He's got that one season going away, and other than that, he's been pretty great.
He had a top 3 NFL season of all time.
Top 2
as a wide receiver. Top 2. Well, I'm just saying, like, overall, you could put a Jerry season, Calvin Johnson season, or Randy Moss's 22 touchdown breaking season. That one, like, that's like your short order list of best seasons as a wide receiver ever. I don't know Jacoby does that, but that's okay. We'll never know.
Not, but I'm saying Cooper's career is pretty Pro Bowl-ish to borderline Pro Bowl-ish outside of that. And even some less than that throughout his career. It's not like he's been elite his entire career, which I think was my point at the time.
No, he had been, he had 1,100 yards 4 years ago, then 974. I think he got injured that year. Then it was 1947. And then last year it was 812 in like 9 games.
Which is very much in the Jacoby
he had developed
range.
I'm not sure if Jacoby has even gotten to that, but you know what? I did not expect. I was gonna say I did not expect to be talking about Jacoby Myers here, but that's okay. That's fine with me.
He does look
Jacoby
good.
Had
we can move on.
Jacoby had 866 as max. That's his max year is 866. So, but yeah, my other takeaway from this game on the Pittsburgh side was Jaylen Warren does give them a little bit of a punch. George Pickens is very nice. I think he definitely has like up and coming potential to him for sure to maybe be in that top 10 one day. Obviously right now he's not. There's so many good wide receivers, but he has that kind of potential with his catch radius, his run after the catch ability. So, and he showed that in the game as well. And then this game was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I had the game 22-17. It was 23-18 Steelers. It was exactly the game that I thought it was going to be. So, it did not shock me in the slightest. Tim, do anyone have more points on this game, or do we want to move to any of the 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock slates? Tim picked the first one, so Kyle, you pick the next, and I'll pick the next game we talk about.
Well, I know you want to talk Broncos Dolphins, so we can go ahead and talk about the Cowboys. Because that was a shit show.
Kyle, so what do you have to say about the Cowboys?
A few things. I thought the coaching was absolutely terrible. Like, I was beside myself watching Mike McCarthy. They were down 12, I believe they're down, and they're driving. Like, clearly Arizona had control of the game at one point. Clearly Dallas started off by taking them lightly, and then Dallas started playing their game. They gained some momentum. They were moving the ball. It's the end of the third quarter. They're down again, I think 10 or 12. I can't remember the score, but a field goal would have made it a one-score game. And it's 4th and 4. And Mike McCarthy says, why would we need points when we're inside the 20? Let's go for it. You know, like, why kick the field goal and make it easier on us? Let's go ahead and just risk it. He does. They obviously don't convert. The Cardinals do what they do. And I think the Cowboys get the ball back, go down. They're driving. They're actually going to make it interesting. And what happens, of course, is Dak throws the pick. And that pick wouldn't have even mattered had Mike McCarthy just took the points the first time, but no, they got greedy. And then not only that, when Dak throws the pick, they're like inside the 10 chewing up all kinds of clock. Like, we talked about McDaniels chewing up the clock. McCarthy chewed up at least 2.5 minutes, maybe not more.
Feels like 5 straight Pollard runs or something.
I was fucking screaming at the TV. Maybe I had money on that game, maybe, but I was beside myself. I was absolutely beside myself. And look, as a Pats fan facing the Cowboys next week, I feel a little bit better just seeing how light they could take it. I thought maybe they had grown up a little bit and would just get past the Cardinals. And not only that, sure, they're playing with their food a little bit, whatever. But then for them to go 4-on-4 there when they could have just made it an easy game. Like, they were really not having trouble with the Cardinals after that once they started to gain momentum and get on their shit. And then, let's fuck around and go for it on 4th and 4. I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I mean, look, I will say this about the Cardinals. They do move the ball effectively on offense on occasion. James Conner can still rush it. Their line looks decent. And as I said, against the Giants, Dobbs just looks very comfortable in the offense. So if you give him time, he's going to do okay. And,
he's playing like he's got nothing to lose.
Most part. Exactly. And I think this Cardinals team is better than we all thought, as far as just, like, I think we all thought they were going to be a shit show, and they're not that. You know, so that was my takeaway. The coaching
played
was
hard in all 3 games.
Yeah, and look, it's not really going to take away much from the Cowboys, especially if the Eagles lose tonight. But if the Eagles don't, this could be the game that separates, home field advantage in one round, maybe 2. Because I mean, the Niners just aren't losing a game like that. I don't believe that Eagles, especially 3 weeks from now, are losing a game like that. The Cowboys now, as we see, they're a threat to lose that type of game anytime because that's in their DNA anyway. And again, I thought they had grown up, thought they would just stop fucking around, and, that's not what happened yesterday. I actually have a question about the Cowboys, but we can save that for later. It doesn't have to be for now.
Timmy, did you want to go next, or do you want me to pile on this?
I'll say something quickly for you. I think the Eagles lost 2 very good coaches, and one of them was to the Cardinals, the other one was to the Colts. But both those teams look like they could win almost any game. Colts had a bad week 1. Other than that, they're playing hard. They're in most games, and they look like
they didn't even have really a bad week 1.
Yeah,
too.
I mean,
like, they were in the game with the Jags late. It's just Jags pulled away at the end.
Right.
But yeah, no, you're right,
so
100%.
I think they got 2 of the best coaches that they possibly could have filled those positions with. So I think both those franchises look like they're in pretty good shape. Even if the Cardinals do end up this being their only 1 win of the year, I think that they're in a pretty good spot going forward.
They've already shown right now that they're going to play for the coach. They've already shown right now that they have fight in them. You get yourself that, you see that as Drake May, you see that as Caleb Williams, you see that as Bo Nix, Sanders if he does come out this year, if he stays next year. Like, you see that as a quarterback, and you're like, okay, I can go to that franchise. You maybe look at the Bears, who we might talk about later, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I really care to go there. Not that you won't change it, or not that you don't feel like you can change it because you're that good of a quarterback, but like, you look at that organization, like, I don't really know about that. The Cardinals at least are playing hard, and they're in games. They've had a 4th quarter lead in all 3 games. Obviously, they're 1-2, but 4th quarter lead in all 3 games. So kudos to them. Cowboys wise,
real quick.
Yeah, go on.
This is it. This is it. This is the start of the avalanche. I've been marking it This is it. They lost Trayvon Diggs. The next couple days, they lose a really bad game. This is it.
Yep.
This is where it goes.
So the thing is with this is playing New England next week. I'm gonna we'll talk about this game more so when we do our predictions. But I just wanted to say the formula the Cardinals had were running the ball well, not turning it over, making Micah more of a run stopper than a pass rusher to make him so he doesn't just get a full head of steam every single play. You run at him, not away from him. Obviously, they have to play more zone, not as much man coverage because you don't have Diggs there. Looks like a formula the Patriots can do. They can run the ball. They play physical. They limit turnovers. Make plays. I don't know. Have a good defense. Just saying.
Not only that.
Regardless, I don't know.
Not only that.
Go on.
Thing with the Cowboys, on that 4th and 4, it was pretty obvious what they're doing because they have no power option. Everybody, like everyone on the Cowboys or Cowboys fans last year, like, yeah, Zeke's. Everyone couldn't wait to get rid of Zeke, but like, that's a good power option that you're gonna need in these, December, January games, or in that 4th and 4 situation. They have no red zone option at all, which is something Philly and the 49ers don't have an issue with. So Dallas is very much a finesse team. So I could very well, obviously, like you said, we're going to talk about Pats, Cowboys, and everyone else on Thursday. But, there's a world, of course, where the Cowboys are just like, whatever, we're getting back to our bullshit, and we're going to just, Micah gets to the quarterback a million times next week, whatever. Mm-hmm. But like you said, the Patriots have the formula, and the fact that they're a finesse team and really have no run option, and the Patriots can really stop whatever kind of offense you throw at them with this defense. The defense is so versatile. I think it makes it very much an intriguing matchup, and Dallas is banged up on the offensive line, so we'll see. But the fact that they don't have that power back option and didn't want to address it in the offseason, it's going to come back to haunt them at some point.
And that was my number one thing fantasy-wise with Tony Pollard was never more than 193, I want to say, carries in a season, maybe even less than that throughout college. And he might have in high school, but I couldn't see. But like Tony Pollard had never gotten that kind of workload, and he's not that kind of back, which is why when I always talked to Joe DeZazzo before, he was like, I think Tony Pollard's better than Zeke. I was like, I think Zeke served more of a like 3 years ago, I used to say that Zeke was a little better, even though Pollard was more explosive because he served a purpose. Kind of like Derrick Henry the same way. He leans on the defense. 3-yard run becomes a 5-yard run because he lays that shoulder into you. And that in the fourth quarter becomes a 10-yard run because people are tired on the line. Linebackers are not as eager to hit the hole. It's the same thing late with the Cowboys last year. Clearly Pollard right now is the more explosive and better running back than Zeke. But Zeke on 3rd and 1, as you say, he's going to put his head down. He's going to run, and he's not afraid of getting contact. And that goes a long way. That makes, how they, like, obviously on 4th and 4, maybe that makes your 3rd down plays different because you're like, okay, you know what? If it's 3rd and 7 and you're going for it on 4th, you're not afraid to hand it off because you can get 3 or 4 yards to then get a 4th and 3 rather than a 4th and 7. So you're right. That power game is going to definitely hurt them at some point, I feel, unless they just blow teams out of the water. And so we'll see. We'll see how the Cowboys are going to do. Oh, man, they just love to disappoint people. I love it.
They've already lost Ira this year.
Joe.
That didn't take much. Does not take much to lose Ira.
By the way, Joe Burrow is officially active. Just want to let you guys know that notification just came across. So
I like that for my T.
We'll
Higgins.
talk about that game at the end as well.
Let's go. Yes, we will. Let's go. All right. So I'm going to just quickly say something about the Patriots, which is going to lead me into this game that we clearly know I'm going to talk about. So I saw the Dolphins put up 36. I saw the Dolphins put up 70. Patriots helped them 25. Just wanted to say that. But yeah, speaking of, I just watched the NFL team put up 70. Not trying to score late in the game, might I add. They didn't throw it often. They threw it like once.
Running the clock.
They just kept running. They just kept running.
Man.
Steven Raboin on the sideline just was like, you know what? We're going to run. Raheem Mostert got back to San Fran. NFC Championship game against the Packers. I brought that up. Austin still has nightmares about that game where he went over 200. Shane thought this was high school. He went off. They did this without Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill wasn't even crazy. Like, Tyreek Hill, obviously, we watched him get 200 in the first quarter. Like, he wasn't even crazy. Like, obviously, he played a good game. I think he had like $150. Tua wasn't even crazy. He threw for more yards in week 1. Like, there was nothing.
If someone told you, if someone told you 70 points was dropped, you'd say, oh no, I was just going to say, if someone told you 70 points was dropped, you'd say, how many yards, how many touchdowns did Tyreek have? That'd be my first question, aside from Tua. But yeah, no, Tyreek didn't even have a dominating game. Go ahead.
They didn't have a dominating game, didn't have Waddle. If you would have said a team this year dropped 70, I would have said the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Chiefs. And either way, I would have said the quarterback goes for 500. Their best receiver has their best catcher, because Travis Kelce is a tight end, has 203 tubs, at least. I would have said 350. They ran for 350. They all over them. Tua, Magic Johnson, Tagovailoa. Show looked
that
like
no
the
look
show.
was
It looked
so
like Showtime.
Beautiful. That was a beautiful no look. I replayed that.
It looked like Showtime.
That was such a smooth no look.
This is exactly probably how the Lakers felt in 85 or 86, 87. Like, this is. Oh boy!
I gotta say this.
Stop talking. I
gotta say this.
Go on.
Nathaniel
I'll
Hackett.
talk about the Broncos afterwards. You guys talk.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's exactly where I was going. Nathaniel Hackett is one of the worst head coaches we've seen in the NFL. He did an absolutely terrible job. He was ill-equipped to be a head coach. I'm not even sure if he's a good coordinator, honestly. Like, that's a conversation for another day. But
same with McDaniels, if we want to talk about that too. But that's another conversation for another day.
That's exactly the conversation. If you're real quick, if you're a coordinator of Brady, Manning, or Rodgers, and then to some degree maybe Mahomes, how much do you do to a point? Young in the career, sure, but once they're that guy, how much do you really do? Right? That's my question. But that being said, 70 points. I don't care if Sean Payton's a Hall of Fame coach. Like, I would strongly, and this is just me, and maybe this is a good thing why I don't run any team, but I would strongly consider firing my coach if he gave up 70. I don't care if it's week 3. I don't care if it's week 2. I don't care if it's week 1 would be like your only saving grace. There is no reason for that. I'm watching the Patriots game, and I see in the third quarter that the Dolphins just got their 49th point with plenty of time in the game. And at that point, I'm like, cool. I'm saying to myself, cool. That'll be so cool if the Dolphins get 60 points. Like, that would be dope. That would be funny. That would be hilarious in itself. Then they end with 70 points. How do you give up 70 in a non-Madden NFL game? In a early week college game when you're facing scrubs as a major program? Like, I never thought I would see it. And look, the Broncos are bad. And, we kind of talked about Russ last week. None of this has to do with Russ. I almost feel bad for Russ now. They're having Hackett. Now having Sean Payton, who apparently cannot motivate the defense enough. I don't even know what to think of it. I feel sincerely bad for Broncos fans. But Tim, go ahead.
Tim, please talk before I do again.
I got 3 things to say. Nathaniel Hackett might have been a terrible coach, but he never let up 70. Didn't let up 60. Didn't let up 50.
He thinks 100%.
Second thing, someone's getting fired. Defensive coordinator, somebody on this team has to get fired. It literally might be their coach. I don't know. But somebody is not going to be a Broncos coach next week. There was another thing I was going to say, and now I've totally blanked on it. Keenan, go ahead, and I'll jump back in if I need to. But
since you blanked, hold on, Keenan, before you go. I just want to say,
you're good.
Sean Payton, this is the last thing I saw before I came in to record, actually, was Sean Payton said nobody's getting fired on the staff, that seems questionable. But
that is weird. That's strange. I've remembered.
The worst. Go on, Timmy.
So Marvin Mims had that 99-yard kick return touchdown, right? That wasn't an offensive touchdown. That was a special teams touchdown. The backups for the Dolphins outscored the starters for the Broncos. The backup quarterback came in and manufactured an offense that scored more points in one quarter than the Broncos did in the entire game.
Oh, man. This guy, Sean Payton, he's getting his Hall of Fame card revoked for one day. One day, he can get it back tomorrow. Like when Pippen said stuff about Jordan, he could get out of Chicago lore for a day or a week, whatever. His Hall of Fame coach is one day. You said last year, worst coaching job ever. In Nat Hackett. He didn't do that. That never happened. The problem with the Broncos last year was they couldn't score enough. The defense was fine. They returned pretty much the same defense. Like, this isn't crazy. The Dolphins had the same, 49, cool. 56, cool. I get it. I've seen that before. 70? When does that happen? 66 or something along those lines? What are we doing? I can't even be mean to Russ right now. He can go score more points than 20, or technically more points than 13. He has the ability to go put the ball in the end zone himself. But again, he wasn't scoring 70. There's no way that's happening. Sean Payton, your defense is not your strong suit. We know that. But still, you got to manifest something. What is going on? I feel so bad for Broncos guys. But at the same time, I couldn't care less. I don't know why the Broncos, to me, have always been a team where I'm just on them. Always have been. Like Champ Bailey used to wear his jersey when I used to do my singing. But other than that, this Broncos team, they're the travesty. Hopefully, I hope they get the number 1 pick. I want to know what they would do with that. But actually, I don't. I hope they get number 2, just so they can't get Caleb Williams. But go on, Kyle.
I have a question, and then I have 2 comments now. Originally, it was 1. Tim, if you need clarification, Keenan once at a talent show was wearing a Champ Bailey jersey, but was singing Green Day, Wake Me Up When September Ends. It's my favorite fun fact to tell about Keenan. Anytime, yeah.
I need that video.
I still don't know why either. Yeah, right? We do need the video. That's very true. We still don't know why it happened, but it happened. My other comment, this pissed me off. Mike McDaniel was praised for not going for the NFL record for points. And I'm like, why the fuck would you get praised for that? If you give up 70, you deserve to get 80, 90, 95. Anything past, 45 is abysmal in an NFL game. Anything past that, you deserve every score put on your head. So for them to kneel and for people in the media to actually praise that, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. True story. Yeah. True story. Go real quick, just to relate it. When I was back in my coaching days, I was coaching girls junior high basketball. We got blown out by a team, absolutely blown out. And then in the fourth quarter, they started doing 5 passes before you score. And I said to the coach after the game, I was like, if that ever happens again where my team puts in that shitty of an effort, I was like, put up 150 on us. I don't care. I was like, don't pass it around on us. Max it out on us. I don't care. So that's how I feel about it, especially in professional sports. That shit's ridiculous. My question, though, Keenan, you mentioned Sean Payton, his Hall of Fame candidacy, and we talked. Go ahead. Do you have something to say real quick?
All I was going to say to your point was 100% agree. These are grown professionals getting paid millions of dollars. Like when the Thunder last year got blown, or they blew. I think they got blown out. Or was it last year or 2 years ago? Whenever it was, when the Thunder lost by the record margin. Blow them out. If you can put up 100, put up 100. You know why? Because it's really cool. If you were yeah, put them to bed. If you could say, hey, I'm part of the team with the greatest offensive game ever. That's a pretty cool thing. Tua's yeah, I quarterbacked the team with the most points ever in a game. No one else can say that. It's a pretty cool thing. Like when NBA players want to get to that 50 mark or get to the 60, 70 mark, whatever, like the tens, because that obviously matters, go for it. I don't really care. Or when people late in game, like say Steph has 47, he wants to get to 50 with 30 seconds left, he puts up a three and makes it. Play defense. If you didn't want him to shoot it, play defense. You guys sucked. You let him get 50. You let him get 70 points. Might as well be 100 in an NFL game. Go on, ask your question. Broncos suck.
I agree. Take the Broncos to the vets and just put them down. Put them to sleep. It's the end of the Broncos in that case. But we've talked a lot about, like we talked about Sean Payton as a Hall of Fame coach. Then, of course, this happens. But then I saw somewhere someone mentioned it, and I did my research, and I'm like, there's something there. This person that made this statement is correct. Like, there's something here, and I'm going to present it to the both of you. Mike McCarthy and Sean Payton's resumes are not that far off, and the way we view Sean Payton is vastly different than we view Mike McCarthy. And if you go look at their career wins right now, it's like it's within 20. It might even be within like 10. Like I looked last night, I don't remember, but it's not far off the wins and losses. And I'd forgotten Mike McCarthy is from the Favre era, so he bridged the Favre era into the Rodgers era and was there, up until about 4 seasons ago. So he was there quite a long time. Really only had, I think, 2 bad seasons, maybe. But it's true. We do view Sean Payton. What's up?
Aaron Rodgers got injured in one of those seasons. They went like 6-10, and he missed like 9 games. So yeah, they were going to be bad that year too.
Sure. Yeah, and so, we don't have to have a huge discussion about it, but I thought it was interesting. You guys can look on your own time, but I mean, I do think it's interesting how we view Sean Payton to Mike McCarthy. I mean, I can even attest to that. I've shit on Mike McCarthy before. I'm one of these guys who thinks Sean Payton was amazing in New Orleans, but, Mike McCarthy, you can make a solid argument that his resume is even better. And his 2 seasons outside of the Dak season in Dallas, that 2020 season, 12-5 each year after that, so.
Timmy, you respond to that because I'm gonna double down on that after.
I would agree that they are like. I was also under the impression that they were like pretty similar, especially on like wins, and then like they each have a Super Bowl. Actually, does Peyton have a Super Bowl? Yeah, he's got a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's 2009.
The only thing is, I'm mainly shitting on Mike McCarthy because he's a Cowboys coach. And his tenure with the Cowboys, he has done some pretty stupid stuff to cost them their seasons. And we don't really see that. Exactly. And we didn't really see that a lot with Sean Payton. At least it wasn't like as bad.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like sometimes, and obviously some of this is media narrative too, because you go off what you hear. So like when the media narrative about someone is they're great and then the other person's that they're not great, you're kind of almost get that in your head until you look at it yourself. And with Mike McCarthy, I mean, both of them had a top 7 all-time quarterback, top 7. Because I go on, Kyle. I'll let you talk before I go.
I was going to say, I don't know if Mike McCarthy, I've never heard the media really be either way about McCarthy, whether it's great. I think he's always been in the middle. If anything, I think he's been overshadowed. Me personally, even when he was in Green Bay, I used to be like, this guy's overrated. I used to be that way as a fan, but that was when I used to be on, the Brady corner heavy, and Rodgers was coming up on that.
Oh yeah, I hated Rodgers.
So there was a little bit of that there.
As of late, exactly. Kyle, he's been more so. As of late, he's been more so McCarthy in that like bad. In that bad realm. He's really kind of a 50-50 guy. Yeah, Cowboys makes sense. He was really a 50-50 guy. So they both had an all-time great quarterback, one Drew Brees, one Aaron Rodgers. They've both been in a situation where they both had terrible defenses, except for a couple of years, which they each won a Super Bowl when they had pretty good defenses. But otherwise, they had bad defenses, both of them. Statistically, it matches up in everything. One was 7-9, one made the playoffs every year. So it either comes down to how you feel about Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy, or how you can look at Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees different. Because the defenses were both bad during the same time. And
I would push back on that a little bit. The Packers always had some playmakers.
Wasn't great at all.
They had Hall of Famers there. They had Peppers. They had Clay Matthews.
It's the numbers you put up.
AJ Hawk, Charles Woodson. They had a lot of playmakers, and they had ability to get stops. It was not as bad as New Orleans in their prime, where it was literally Drew Brees and everybody. Let's go track meet them. Packers were a little bit bend but don't breakish. They had a well-known who they had. They had Dom Capers as their DC. They had it wasn't all time bad there. They at least had playmakers and they had the ability to get stops.
But I mean, you had Malcolm Jenkins, Cameron Jordan, Jonathan Vilma, Tracy Porter. Like, they didn't have bad personnel per se in New Orleans always. Like, their personnel. No, but
they didn't have the playmakers the Packers had. Packers had true playmakers, impact players on their defense.
Yeah, I mean, their defense underperformed then because they did have some playmakers, but their defense underperformed. But
it's fair to say.
But I was just saying, statistically, their numbers were pretty similar throughout all of those years. So, but
you can't go 15-1 with a bad defense.
What?
I would say you can't go 15-1 with a bad defense, though.
No, I mean the Saints did go 13-3 a few years during that, like in the midst of that stretch too. So I mean, you wouldn't say you go 13-3 with a bad defense either. So it's
Vikings.
They're really
if
you compare. Yeah, but I mean the difference between two games, I wouldn't say makes you have a good defense to bad defense. I don't think because you win 13 you have a bad defense.
It's very hard to win 15 games with a bad defense. But we're digressing here. We got to move on to these other games because this first Monday night game is starting very soon.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. The Broncos pissed me off.
I think we can all agree the Broncos are trash.
Yeah. Timmy, do you want next game? Timmy, what do you want to bring up? We don't have to go through every one of them. Just any points of note that you want, because I have one more I really want to bring up.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Last week I had said that none of the rookie QBs were like that guy. I had said that a little prematurely. I saw that the Texans lost, but I didn't realize that C.J. Stroud actually played a really good game. And C.J. Stroud is that guy. I think
that's where I was going next.
Yeah, I think he actually looks really good. Their offense doesn't have a lot of like star power at all. It's all young guys or like people that didn't land on other teams, and he just keeps playing really well. I think he has like 120 pass attempts without a pick. So he for a rookie, that's like pretty phenomenal. So I think he's the dude. Before the draft happened, I thought he was the best quarterback. The score and then the preseason and everything kind of like took him away, but I think he's that guy, and I think they got a steal at the second pick there.
Kyle, you go on next, and I'll finish up talking about the old Texans.
Oh, only thing I really have to say is the Jags are on fraud alert for me early on here. They didn't, as I said last week, they didn't look great against the Colts. They did not look great, obviously, against the Chiefs. Especially this offense. Like, they just, I don't know. There's way too much talent there for them to not at least be competing in these games. Like, they were down by 2 touchdowns a lot of yesterday. The defense held up. Like, this offense is where you got to have the questions. I get it. Trevor Lawrence, everybody said he's the greatest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, basically. And,
some said Manning.
Andrew Luck.
Some usurped Luck and said Manning too. And
that's insane. That's insane to me. And I think Lawrence has been good. Like, obviously he made it to the playoffs last year, but I don't see all of that yet. I really don't. And that's just where I'm at. It's still very early, and the Jags started off shaky last year. But man, this offense just looks pretty flaccid, to say the least. And I would just like to see more. And this was everybody's darling before the season. Some even having him in the AFC Championship game. Some even saying Trevor Lawrence MVP. I could never go that far, and this is why. I just don't see the consistency yet out of them. They're still very much a young team. But again, it's early, and that AFC South is, it's very putrid right now.
It is, but it's not. It's more competitive than I thought it was going to be. Like, the Colts look better than I thought. The Texans look Texans look as good as I thought they were going to, because I didn't think they were going to be like a above 500 team at all, but I thought they were going to be in games. Obviously, as I said, I was big on the Texans defense because I think they have young pieces. And then the Titans obviously are just well coached. So this division, as like subpar as it is, it's better than I thought it was going to be, because I really thought the Colts weren't going to be good at all. But again, coaching really matters. And the point that I was going to bring up earlier that Timmy made is they got him from the Eagles, like coaches from the Eagles. Great. It shows how we'll see if the Eagles can get back to the promised land and win, because if not, they might have missed an opportunity losing last year, because if we're seeing them have two coaches who are doing very successful already, plus you have all that together, the talent was there at an extremely high level at every level, and they just missed it. And obviously it was a pass interference that I didn't think was a pass interference. I wouldn't have called it, but again, they did call it. You kick the field goal, the Chiefs win, whatever. It goes, you can't change it now, but it's going to be interesting to see moving forward, because that Eagles team, the more when you break it down, they were loaded. And they're still loaded, but they were even more loaded because when you have great coaches like that too, like when you look down coaching staffs and you see all these great coaches on them, plus you already had, it's going to be interesting to see the Eagles moving forward. But yeah, the AFC South is interesting.
It's interesting, but it's interesting for, I mean, it's
subpar interesting.
It's subpar. It's just like the NFC South, really. The NFC and the AFC South are both in the same boat, but like, yeah, it could be better. That's all. But I'm not still.
Oh yeah.
I still think the Colts will be the seller of that. Like it looks okay now. We just don't really know what it'll look like in the end. And honestly, the Ravens should have won that game. There was an obvious PI call on the play that would have continued the game. And I thought the Ravens in general outplayed them. They were playing in a tropical storm, much like the Jets and Pats game was. So it was weather. But the game really should have been over after that Minshew safety. I don't really know how the fuck the Colts really won that game. I really don't. But, you know, they came out with the win. Minshew did play well. I mean, he played okay. He did what he had to do. Yeah, and it's still, I mean, we brought this up last week, and I'll get back to it. I'll bring it up later with a couple other points, but I just can't believe how many of these teams do not have a serviceable backup. Like Minshew is a perfect backup. I don't know why all teams don't have at least that level of backup, you know? Someone who can come in, run your offense, and just, no, he's not as talented as your number one guy, but he can run the offense and get the ball to open receivers. I don't think that's much to ask, but we can move on from that, though.
Only reason why I think people...
the AFC South.
South, no. I was going to say the only reason why I could think it is if people are really worried about their quarterbacks. Like if they're worried that their quarterback's going to get upstaged by their backups, but that makes no sense, obviously, if you have faith in your quarterback. So again, Kyle, we talked about this last week. I do not have any understanding as to why you wouldn't have a good backup. Matt, the Jets right now is a good backup. But go on.
No, yeah, I was gonna say it later, but I'll just add it right now. I looked last night, went to 2013 and went to the list of quarterbacks, and I was being nice last week when I said like, oh, I think there was more quality. It's astounding how much quality there was. Like when you get to the 28th quarterback and you think they're better than some of these top 14, top 12 guys, it's I was surprised by it. I'll let you guys look it up yourselves, but there was guys 32 deep that I was like, okay, he would be starting for a lot of teams right now if he was in the league, like the Sam Bradford types. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, there was not just a bit more quality, a lot more quality 10 years ago at the position. And I was shocked to see that, honestly. There was a lot of names I left out last week.
Yeah. Fun fact for people to look that up.
Go ahead.
I was just saying a fun fact for people to look that up and see.
For sure. Let's keep actually AFC South and talk about Titans and Browns, though, because Deshaun surprised the shit out of me. He did have that play where he threw the ball backwards and they recovered it. That was insane. But aside from that, that's the best he's looked since he's came back. Easy. That's by far the best he's looked. And he had his rough moments, but, I mean, he took control of that game. And they took a touchdown away from him with Amari Cooper on the sideline there. So he really should have had 3 touchdowns instead of 2. But he was kind of dealing a little bit. And he looked anything but that the week before on Monday night versus Steelers. So it was a shock to me to see him out there doing that. I mean, that makes you think if they had Chubb and he's playing like that, what could that be? And even still, Titans have a good defense. Titans are a well-coached team, and they kind of put them away. And that Browns defense is, again, no fucking joke at all. At all.
Timmy, you going?
Amari Cooper wasn't even close to being out. That line judge is blind. He was looking right at it from a foot away from him, and he was 6 inches inbounds. I don't know what the hell he was thinking.
I don't understand it.
If the Browns defense keeps playing like this, they might be a contender. And if Deshaun keeps playing like this, they might be a contender. But they got to stay hot. This happens a lot. The Browns will start hot, and then they just get cold. And then their defense, they've got stars. They can make plays on defense. It's just they need to stay hot. And if they do, I think they're a playoff team. I think they'll squeak right in. So
Titans only had 94 total yards yesterday.
Yeah.
And 3 points.
Points.
That's the thing that's tough.
The opposite of the Miami Dolphins.
That's the thing that's tough about the Titans is they're so well coached, but they don't have talent. Like, if Vrabel could just be on a few of these other teams, they would be so well off. But there's like, could you imagine? Even I understand that like Mike McCarthy's not a bad coach, but Vrabel on that team, like the mistakes would go. The clock management would go. Like those problems would probably leave. Like it's just like
No, they would. They would absolutely.
Like he's a top 7 coach in the league, but he happens to have a worst 7 roster in the league, but he still makes them competitive. It's Derrick Henry, Jeffrey Simmons, a couple other people on defense. Obviously now they got DeAndre Hopkins, and they just find a way to be in games. Obviously they got beat badly by the Browns, so this is not the week to be saying it. But regardless, Vrabel has a very, very good coach. I mean, they were the 1 seed a few years back, which there were no business being the 1 seed, but they were the 1 seed. I mean, they won big games. They played hard. It's what they do. So Vrabel is a coach that like you don't see it often, but if you could trade for a coach, I would look into trading for Vrabel if I'm a team that has talent. I really would.
Broncos.
Like the Chargers, if I'm the Chargers, I would give up a first for Vrabel. That's the difference between a Super Bowl and not. That may just be me.
Can we talk about Chargers Vikings while we're at it? While we're talking about dumbass coaches?
Yeah. I just want.
I literally
go on.
Look. I said last week when we were picking games, I'm like, this Chargers Vikings game is going to be fucking stupid. It's going to be the dumbest thing you've ever seen. It's going to be chaotic, but it's going to be a fun game to watch. That's exactly what the hell it was. By the way, Chargers lost Mike Williams in that game.
Yeah.
Seems like that happens every season.
Keenan Allen's a problem.
Sucks for him because he was playing well. But what a chaotic ending to that game where it's like 4th and 1 on our own 23. Let's go for it. Like that's the kind of shit that got me like pulling my hair out. I don't even care about the Chargers, and that shit would have me pulling my hair out. Like, who is this guy? Why does he still have a job? Like, what? How? And I still picked them. I picked him to win Coach of the Year. I picked him to usurp the Chiefs this year in the AFC West. And there he was, actively like, yeah, no, let's try to lose this game. Like, let's do it. Let's do it, guys. And he did. They get stopped. By the way, Herbert, he can run a little bit. Let's get him rolling out. Nah. Let's do a fullback dive. Let's do it. Let's take it straight out of 1982. Do a fullback dive and see what we can do. Vikings get it. Vikings get a first down. They're in business. They got 40 seconds left. Cousins, who, say what you want about Cousins, he's a professional quarterback, knows to spike the ball there. Even if he doesn't spike the ball, they could have got a playoff at least 15 seconds earlier. Nope, they rush it to the line. They wait as long as they can, about 18 seconds to get a playoff, and Cousins throws a pick at the goal line. That was literally a battle for who could lose the game. That was insanity. It was chaotic. I don't expect anything to change for either one of those teams. It's going to continue to be chaotic. Weirdly, at 0-3, I don't think the Vikings are done. I think they got a lot of room in that division. I think the Lions are going to lose their share of games, and I think the Packers are going to lose their share of games, and I think the Vikings will be in it. Chargers, of course, they're still going to be in it somehow, but Staley will find a way to try to make them not be in it. So interested to see how they move forward. They're used to being without Mike Williams. They still have Keenan Allen. Still have a lot of talent. They still have Eckler, obviously, once he comes back. So your guess is as good as mine on how the rest of this Chargers season goes, but that was peak Brandon Staley yesterday. I couldn't believe what I was watching, but at the same time, was not surprised at all.
The Vikings need to just, in my personal opinion, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I didn't have them making the playoffs before the season. I now definitely don't have them making the playoffs. If they do, it's because the NFC bottom tier, like right after like your top two teams, I'm going to put the Cowboys in it for this week. They don't deserve it after what I just saw. Obviously, I think they're the third best team, but still. After that,
Vikings have an upper echelon offense, though. That's the thing. They're always going to be in these games.
They are, and that's why last year they won like 11 games by like 3 points, like deciding like they were able to do that. Which obviously that was going to regress to the mean, and that 11 was going to become 5, and that 13-3 team was, or 13-4 was going to become like an 8-9 team. But I don't think they're definitely playing harder. But like I also feel if they lose a couple more games, like it's time to get like a new quarterback there. And it's not because I think Kirk Cousins is bad by any means. I wrote down this Vikings team reminds me of the Blazers team from a couple years back. They had Dame, they had CJ McCollum, they had a good nucleus. After they lost to the Warriors, they got swept in a hard-fought series that one game 4 went to overtime, I believe. But they got swept. Steph outclassed them. The Warriors outclassed them. I was like, that was easily their peak. They need to break it up. I thought they needed to break it up a couple years before that, but they got it to it. I just think the Vikings, you need to retool after some point. I don't think this team has like a Super Bowl ceiling. I think this team has a divisional round ceiling, and I just feel at some point it's a Kirk Cousins thing. I think he needs to be on a perfect team for him to win. I do think he can win a Super Bowl. Like Jared Goff, obviously they lost to the Patriots 13-3, but Jared Goff made a few plays down the stretch, even though obviously the Nicole Roby-Coleman happened. But in overtime, Breeze did throw a pick. Jared Goff did make plays to get him in field goal range. Like on a team like that, Kirk Cousins could shine. I just think that he needs to find a team like that, and the Vikings are not it. Because he needs the defense there. Offensively, they have weapons galore. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, Alexander Madison's been but that's just my thoughts. They're like the Blazers to me, and I think that they should break it up. Like get Kirk out of it. I know he has a no-trade clause. I think his contract's up at the end of the season, but I would break it up if I could.
I believe they just extended him.
Did they just extend him?
I think they gave him like a 2-year extension.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did. They got to get rid of him. They got to find a way to get rid of him. If they can get a top 5 pick.
Exactly. I completely agree. If they're able to trade him, he would make a lot of teams contenders just by upgrading quarterback play. Like you said, the no-trade clause, and then he's also one of those quarterbacks that just wants the money, so it's a big deal, trading away $40 million. Who's going to take it? I think both of these teams, though, I know the Chargers losing Mike Williams. They said it's season ending, so he's out. But both these teams they can hang with most teams, but they're probably going to lose. And it was funny that these two teams had to come together to play on week 3 because one of them had to lose.
Unless they tied.
Yeah.
Which I could have seen that.
I totally could have. It would have been funny. Playing against...
They tried their hardest.
They did. They really did. Playing against Ira this week, he had Kirk Cousins and TJ Hawkinson. Wasn't really involved throughout most of the game, but in the fourth quarter, he started just getting catches, especially on that last drive there. And the pass that was intercepted was intended for him. So when I saw that it was intended for TJ Hawkinson, my heart sank. I just thought it meant got a touchdown. He gets the stack, gets a nice 13, 14 points. That would have really ended me. But nope, picked, loved it, loved to see it, -2 points, best thing that could have happened. I totally agree. I don't think the Vikings are going to win many games, and their defense is just so bad that it's going to be really bad. So I do think they need to move Kirk to a better situation.
If play out these next couple weeks, but if you get to a point, I'm going to look at their schedule real quick. If you get to a point where you're looking at 1-6, 2-7 kind of thing, because next week they have the Panthers. That's a winnable game, but they also could lose it. Then they got the Chiefs. Then they got the Bears. So they should come out of that 2-4. Then they got the 49ers, the Packers, the Falcons, the Saints. That may be 1-3. So at 3-7, at 4-6 at worst, in my opinion, I think it's more 3-7. Obviously you're going to be fighting for that, but every one of those bottom tier teams that we thought are fighting, minus the Bears, who look like they just said, hey, we want the 1 pick. But other than that, like every other team seems to be fighting. Like Cardinals are fighting, Colts are fighting, like all these other teams are. So I think they could be in the running for that, but we'll see.
I think, just to respond to that, I think it's slightly overreactionary with the Vikings. I don't think they'll be able to trade Cousins this year. Like, I know, not saying you guys are saying that, but there's a lot of people saying, like, could the Jets get Kirk Cousins? Could any team hop on the Cousins thing this year? Right. Like, it's like NFL trades. They're so much more complicated than NBA trades, like as far as like finances go and shit like that. So like he's finishing out the season with the Vikings, right?
Oh yeah.
So they got Jefferson. They've got a legit offense. Like they can move the ball on anybody. They're gonna be in all these games. I'm telling you, these Lions and these Packers games are gonna be coin flips. You can book them for 2 wins against the Bears. I really think they're gonna be in the mix down the stretch. Not saying they're a contender, but they're in the mix. And you say he needs a perfect team to compete for a Super Bowl. If they could draft and trade and sign at a quality for defense, this could be a different team next year. I mean, that's looking way ahead, but I mean, this is kind of a perfect situation for Kirk Cousins. He's in a dome. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got options all over on that offense. Like they can, so long as they get defense, they've got a good coordinator in Brian Flores. They can get more pieces on defense. This could be something. It's just a matter of how much time does Kirk really have left. He's got to be mid-30s at least. So,
yes,
whatever. But, I mean, I don't think it's over for this team by any stretch. The NFC North is, like, I like the Packers to win it, but you can, like, when they play the Lions this year, that could very well be a 45-42 type of game. Coin flip game. You know what I mean? So, that's just, I think their season's going to be very much a roller coaster. I don't think it's over by any stretch.
It's not technically over. Like if I had to forecast something, I think it's over. Like it's not like the Bears season's over. They can pack it up. They're done. They're not doing it.
Bears season was over before week 1.
But like the Bears season is over. They can pack it up. But like the Vikings, I don't feel like that at all. If you just were to say, hey, Keenan, do you think the Vikings are making the playoffs or not? I'd be like, I don't think they're making the playoffs. 1, they put themselves in a bad hole. 2, I just don't think their defense can get stops when they need to. But more so what I mean by Kirk Cousins, like this is an ideal situation for him, but sometimes you just need a new venue. Like obviously you see it with coaches all the time. Sometimes your voice gets a little worn out in the locker room. You just need a new venue, new place to kind of re-up yourself. I don't think he's bad by any means. And 2, I just don't think they have the defense, and I just don't see them getting the defense. Because this offense has been great, good to great for the last few years. I mean, like Case Keenum, and they got to an NFC Championship game, and the defense was fine, like good for like a 2-year stretch, and then it just because they're all old.
It can flip just like that.
Again, you're right, and it can flip just like that. And maybe in 15 months, we're looking back. I'm looking at like next year, and I'm like, oh man, this Viking defense is actually looking nice, and obviously the offense has pieces on it too. So we'll see. But in my personal opinion, it kind of feels like Dame on the Blazers. Dame, I like the Blazers team more, so not just Dame. But they had their run. I feel like they just needed a little change up. And I feel like the Blazers did it too late and kind of ruined their time with Dame, and now they're just in full rebuild mode.
I would agree with you if the NFC North was anything like the Western Conference in the NBA. I think there's too much. Like, I think it's a coin flip. I mean, if the Vikings could have won their first 3 games now, they were in all 3 of those. If they go 2-1, I mean, I don't think we're saying the same thing. And, there's just a lot that can happen in the NFL. I think there's a lot of season left. So like you said, in the Bears case or other teams' case, yeah, you can write them off at 0-2, 0-3. I just don't think the Vikings are one of those teams yet.
Fair enough. So, does anyone have any other teams, games, points that they want to bring up?
Not specifically. I mean, I have a point for every game, but there's not any that I.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have talk about any game, but I didn't know if anyone had any pressing points. Kyle, did you have any pressing points you wanted to speak on?
I've got more, but we can talk about those on Thursday, actually. We do our picks.
Yeah.
We can kind of relate it back. Really, what I want to talk about, this is the question I had earlier. Mm-hmm. Tim kind of made me question it yesterday. Like, we were talking about it because he hit me saying, this is it. This is the demise of the Cowboys. Like, it starts now. And I was texting pissed off about having the Cowboys in the teaser, and I called them a poverty franchise, half jokingly. Yep. But then I was thinking about it. I got to thinking about it because he was like, man, if you said that to a Cowboys fan, like they'd have a fit about it. You know what I mean? Like, they'd be pissed. They'd be tight. But then I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, it's been since the mid-'90s. Yes, they spend money. Yes, they try to compete. But as we say, everything's like they find a way to lose. They kind of, am I wrong here for saying they kind of border on a poverty franchise? Like, they've had the success that the Browns and the Lions never had, and yeah, I mean, we're coming up on 30 years here for them.
So,
am I wrong for saying they could be a poverty franchise?
So here's the thing. Yes and no. Because of what they've done in the past and the allure and what they've had, they can't be poverty. And like if in the grand scheme of the NFL, because obviously you can't tell the NFL story. Like, you could just take the line. I mean, technically every players, obviously Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson matter, but you could take the Lions out of the NFL story and you can tell the same story. Like, you can't take the Cowboys out of the NFL story and tell the same story. So I think that in that regard, like, they can't just be known as poverty. I think,
I could make the same argument about the Browns, though.
Yeah, so
Browns were very relevant in the 80s and before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, the harder thing about the Browns is, like, that you're thinking Jim Brown, and, like, these are players that we really never saw, and when the Browns were pretty cool. Like, obviously, they were okay, like, but they weren't the Browns. That was the 60s. And so, like, the Cowboys, I mean, you can still think, oh, I hear Troy Aikman on games. Oh, I see Michael Irvin now on Undisputed. Oh, these players. So, like, I guess, but when it comes to the 21st century, you can, if you were to just say, hey, here is this team, no label on it, you'd be like, they're not great. They're not great. Like, the Packers have had more success. The Saints have had.
It's not so much about success. It's about, poverty franchise, being with the Lions, the Browns, where like the Lions. You mentioned Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders. They're two of the greatest players to ever play this game. And they're the only two players I can think of that were that phenomenal that both retired after 10 seasons. Like, that would only happen to the Lions. The Browns, their franchise moved. They brought them back. All the times they lost in the 80s when they had like a real team and real contenders, they lost in heartbreaking ways. And that's becoming the Cowboys. Like, they're very much the Knicks of the NFL. Like, the Knicks and Cowboys are very synonymous. Knicks ain't won in 50 years. That's the difference. It's coming up on 30 for the Cowboys. Knicks ain't won in 50. The Knicks are very much a poverty franchise in the NBA, even though they're the franchise with the most worth, which is exactly where the Cowboys are. They're the most, what do you call it? They're the franchise that's worth the most in the entire, across the four major sports, I believe. I think it's the Cowboys number one.
Pretty sure all sports.
But they haven't, yeah. They haven't done shit in 30 years, though, as far as real winning. And on top of that, the losing is constantly embarrassing. So that's where the poverty franchise comes in. If it was just losing, I will say they're at least making the playoffs, whereas the Lions and Browns, it's literally you'll go droughts without it, which did happen at the beginning of this century, beginning of the millennium. The Cowboys were perennial losers, and they've kind of turned it around since the mid-2000s. But since then, it's always an embarrassing loss, whether it's Romo, whether it's Dak. It's been 15 years of embarrassing losses. So that's where I think they're right in the middle there. They're competitive enough, but the way they lose constantly tortures the fans.
Timmy, what do you think?
I think if you're asking, are the Cowboys a poverty franchise throughout every year of the NFL, you got to say no. But if you're saying since the year 2000, if that's what we're going to call it, and just say even wherever they marked their last 95, 96. If we're just putting it right there, yeah, I think they're probably a poverty franchise. They might be a contender every year, but then one thing goes wrong and they win 6 games. And it happens quite often. I don't know. They must have had like half of these seasons in the last 25 years be losing seasons. So I would say that they're a poverty franchise. They look okay because they can compete and they can get to the playoffs, but they're never going to go anywhere farther than that. So I don't know if I could even call them a contender, which is what you would need to be at least 1 year to not be a poverty franchise.
They haven't seen it. They haven't seen a championship game.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing about it that makes it even worse. Like, you can go through. The Jets haven't won since Joe Namath. They've at least been to 2 AFC championship games in that span. Like, the Jets have.
Still
if you're just going off of wins and losses, like the Jets are, you could argue they have more success. I think the Cowboys have a better regular season record. But again, they didn't see a championship game. The Jets have seen 2. Your goal's to win a Super Bowl. Who cares about what you do in the regular season? So, like, if you going through all of these teams, and I know, like, obviously, like, the franchise itself is more so what you're talking about as a poverty franchise, but you would compare it to the rest of the league, there might be 7 teams that are on the level of the Cowboys, and we could name them and they're bad. Like, I'm just mentally going through. Everybody in the NFC South has been to a Super Bowl or won one. NFC North, the Vikings got to a conference championship game. The Lions are the Lions. The Packers have won one. The Bears have been to one. The
Bears are bordering on a poverty franchise as well.
Oh,
Bears
God,
are
yeah.
Poverty franchise aware if they're not.
Oh, God,
there.
yeah. But they, yeah.
I do want to say this.
Yeah.
I do want to say this though. To flip it back, the Vikings, I don't think they've been to a Super Bowl, or if they have, it's been like 30 years.
They haven't. They've never been. They haven't been in forever.
I think they were in the 70s, maybe. Either way.
Yeah, like
they've experienced
in forever, because like Chris Carter and Randy Moss, like famously never got to one. They got to a couple championship games, but they never got to one.
Well, so they were 15-1, lost a heartbreaker in like 98, 99, something like that. So the Vikings have had terrible losses, but they're always got like fun teams. So they're also a poverty franchise, but are they really? Because they've always, like, every decade, you can point to them being successful. They never really had droughts. They just lose in terrible fashion. So they're one who would have more of a case than the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have performed like such a Browns, Lions, Jets team these last 20 years, trying to be competitive. That's a difference. They actually try to be competitive, but they just lose terribly bad. So, like, the Vikings are one that I struggle with, because I think, and same with the Falcons. Falcons have lost in terrible ways, but can we really call them a poverty franchise? Like, some of those are borderline. So I would say the most borderline for me would be the Vikings, Falcons, and the Cowboys, because the Jets are true poverty. Yeah. The Lions are true poverty. The Browns are true poverty. Like, yeah, there's just some you can't argue with.
And the funny thing is, you say they're true poverty, but I could make an argument that they've been more successful, which is the crazy thing about it. Like,
the Lions or the Browns?
No. You said the Jets.
No, the Jets, yeah, but they're poverty. I mean, they got Zach Wilson out there right now, and they're trying to say that they're going to.
I'm not even disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you, but again, 2 AFC championship games to 0 NFC championship games, I could still try to make the argument.
You're right.
But like the thing,
you're right. But that's in a 2-year window, and they haven't done shit before or since.
Hey, that's 2 more years than the Cowboys have, and I know you're not trying to argue really for them. My point is saying that. I don't even disagree that you're saying the Jets are a poverty franchise, and the Cowboys still arguably have had less success than the Jets. So, like, that's where it comes in with the Jets, the Cowboys is I really can point to every team but the Browns, Lions, and Texans, and I could probably try to make a case for all of these teams have been more successful in one way, shape, or form, unless I'm leaving out a team. The Commanders in that time span would be the other team that. Unless
Commanders definitely poverty franchise.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying like those 4, the Texans, Lions, Browns, and Commanders, all have been. other than that, like I could make you an argument that they've been as successful as the Cowboys.
I don't know if I can say Texans just because they haven't been around long enough. And anytime they are, it's always like, oh, they're fun. Oh, they got J.J. Watt. They got Andre Johnson. They got Arian Foster. Like, they were never a true contender. And they've never, like, I couldn't give you the most heartbreaking loss other than the time they showed up to Gillette with them varsity jackets and the Pats spanked them bum asses. So, like, that's the only time I can think. Like, that's still embarrassing to think about.
They were up
over
I
after
think,
the first
21-0 against the Chiefs, and by halftime they were down in the divisional. That would be their most heartbreaking loss. No, I'm just saying, but they hadn't been in a situation other than that, really. Like, that's the thing about them. Is I mean, if you don't have the chance, would you be a poverty franchise?
There's so many layers to it. Like, you got to be. I don't think they've had terrible luck. I think
they've just been bad.
Like when but even like I don't think they've been bad. They've had they had those runs with J.J. Watt. They were in the playoffs every year. They just weren't as good as the Colts or the Broncos or the Pats or the Ravens. They were just like always fourth or fifth tier.
But Dallas has been more successful than them. I mean, if you're going off of that, I mean, obviously you're going to Dallas's stature. So, like,
Texans,
as we talked
Texans
about
are
last
much different,
week,
though?
Zach Wilson's more disappointing than, or Zach Wilson, Jamarcus Russell are more disappointing than fourth-round quarterbacks who don't really go and do much. But, like, and that they're bad, don't get me wrong, but it's just because of the fact that they're higher. Like, you expect more out of them because it's America's team, it's a star, it's the silver and blue, it's all of this stuff, the legends and blah, 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 and then they don't produce. It's different because the Texans haven't done anything. They haven't done.
Well, the Texans have only been around. Texans have only been around for 20 years too.
Yeah, I mean, we're going from the 21st century, so I mean they've been around pretty much the entire century. So that's why you're comparing them. They've been bad.
They're bad, but I wouldn't call them poverty yet. Cowboys, I was just broaching the question: like, do they fall under that category? I'm not sure, but I don't think it's. I don't think you'd be wrong if you said yes. I don't think you'd be wrong if you said no either. You know, I think you've got a strong case on both sides.
I think there's a handful of Cowboy fans that I know that would say they're a poverty franchise. I think so.
Yep. There's a handful of Cowboys fans that would tell me they're a poverty franchise one week and tell me that they're a superstar franchise the next week. So it really just depends. Like right now, I could ask Ira, they're a poverty franchise. If I would have asked him after week 2, he probably would have said that they are. This is.
Yeah, you can't call them a poverty franchise, and then this week happens, and they're a poverty franchise. This is going to happen every year. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
so. And I don't think it's going to happen. But say they blow out the Patriots next week, Micah has a pick 6. It's like they threw him back in coverage. Look at what we're doing now. They just took the Cardinals lightly. We're good. It's like okay, all right. We've seen this movie before.
I think they're bordering. I think they're almost in Knicks territory. And I think, let's say, another 5 seasons of this, I think they're absolutely in Knicks territory, especially if we're contending and we don't get it done. Excuse me. Yeah, I think they're right there. I think they're right on the border. I think you give them another 3 to 5 years, especially 5. I'll say 5. 5 seasons of this, and we can officially call them the Knicks. Like, they're without a doubt, the Knicks and Cowboys are without a doubt synonymous, but they're going to be in Knicks territory in 5 years.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious.
If they don't get a Super Bowl.
Yeah. One thing I did want to say that I'm just alluding to it now. I was going through because I made the top 32 quarterbacks list. I'm going to revise that halfway through the season, obviously with new information, new lists come about. So I'm I'm going to revise that. I'm going to release that before week 9. Going into that week.
I still can't believe you have Kyler Murray at 10.
Listen, Kyler's probably going to drop now, but that's fine. Kyler's just talented. Kyler's just talented. That's the thing about him. I guess that's why I guess when I was going through it mentally, I was he is talented enough to be top 10 because he is more talented than Dak is. But again, there's more to being just a quarterback than just being talented. So if that was the case, Zach Wilson would be able to play the position. But And then I'm going to also do. I had put together. I never released it because like I just hadn't got the graphic or fully put it together. I had a top 30 wide receiver list, but I'm actually at the same time I'm going to put out a top 30 wide receiver list as well. So, and then basketball wise, I think I'm probably obviously going to keep what I had at the end of the season. I'll see if I need to change anything, but probably going into the season I'll do that as well because, God, do I love lists and doesn't it get the people talking?
Let me ask you both this.
And Kyle, you go. Yeah.
Let me ask you both this. We meet back up next Monday. We're going to review week 4. Give me one prediction you guys have right now on this Monday. Like, what do you think? What do you think we're talking about next Monday? Like, what do you think one of the headlines is going to be?
I got to look at the games.
A Monday morning headline.
Do it without even looking at the games.
Without even looking at the games. Next week, without looking at the games, I kind of already gone through. Hold up.
I think next Monday, the Jets will have signed another quarterback.
Good one.
It might be Carson Wentz.
Name or just...
I'm saying like Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, could be any of these guys that were like playing last year that are no longer, not even in backup roles. They need somebody. It can't be Zach Wilson for the next 13 games. So
it's reported that they turned Wentz and Matt Ryan down. They both reached out to the franchise and they turned them down, which I think it's something. And Salah's probably not gonna have a job after the season if he sticks to Zach Wilson this much.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's a fair point.
Very much so.
12-25 lifetime record for Salah, by the way.
Oh man. I got 2. I'll go say one now. If Kyle, you say one, I'll say my second one. The first one, I'm saying the Cowboys are in turmoil. Dallas is aflame. It's like everything's gone up in awry in Dallas. But Kyle,
I thought about that one. That'd have been low hanging fruit. I actually don't have one. I just wanted to pose the question. That would have been the one I chose, though. Again, that'd have been low hanging fruit, and it's the Pats. I will say this.
And go. I have one more afterwards. Once you're done.
Sure. Yeah. No. This will just be. I just think this Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing. I think it's all a PR stunt. I don't believe anything about it. I think yesterday was the first time they ever met. That's my opinion, and that's all I got.
She was walking in the tunnel with them. They're together. They're a thing.
It looked very much like it looked. I think it looked staged. I think all this shit is staged. I do. I think that's very much a PR Hollywood relationship that both of them are going to benefit from. Travis Kelce badly wants to be famous.
Hey, that's fair. But I don't think it's a PR thing. I think they can be. I think. Travis Kelce, I think is probably with Taylor, but that's all right. He's one of the Swifties now. But all right, so I know
PR.
I might have looked at the schedule like for 2 seconds. I had one already, but now I have 2. So one is the Dolphins are the team. Will be one. There will be another one, and the Bengals are just fine. Is the second one.
I was thinking about that too.
That's the last thing.
The Bengals. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So, Tim, I want to hear your opinion on this game tonight. Who do you got, Rams or Bengals?
I got Bengals. I actually wrote down for my game this week, I said bounce back game Bengals. I think this will be like a kind of close game. It's Monday night, of course, prep time. But I think they're going to get this W. I think they're going to look like the Bengals offensively, even if Burrow does have a calf issue.
That's pretty much what Keenan said, too. And the question I was going to ask you, Keenan, was even though, like, I was perusing Twitter today, plenty of Bengals fans are just like, is Burrow even going to play? Bengals fans were hyped because they signed A.J. McCarron back to the practice squad on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, like, Bengals fans are freaking out. Bengals fans are like, okay, if he goes, is he going to make it the whole game? This and that. I want to know, Keenan, when all signs are pointing to not only could the Bengals lose this game, but, like, even if they win, it could be a very tough game. why are you so confident in the Bengals, who, again, through 2 weeks have not looked contenderish, have not looked even playoff-ish? Why are you so confident when Bengals fans are themselves like, this might be it for us? Like, I saw someone write no matter what happens tonight, this is our quarterback. Like, they were talking like it's over. So I want to know why you were so confident, Keenan, Patriots fan.
Because fans are emotional. And
they are.
Because fans are absolutely emotional. Listen, I completely understand the emotional fan. Like week 2, week 1, Eagles Patriots, it's 16-0. I'm like, God, can we just tank for Caleb Williams already? By the end of the game, I'm like, Mac looked pretty good. I'm good with it. But no, so I completely understand the fan thing. But why? Because Joe Burrow has never been afraid of a moment. This is a big game. This is a big game just for his team, obviously. It's a big game because it's on national television. It's the last game of the night. It is what the true Monday night game is at the primetime slot of Monday night, if they start doing this 2 a week now, every week. But regardless, so Monday...
This is the last one.
I hope it's just last week and this week. But so he's in the true Monday night spotlight against the team he lost to in the Super Bowl. It's him and Jamar Chase have been friends for a while. They've had a connection for a while. Him and T. Higgins have built a great connection. They have Super Bowl aspirations. They know they've been there. They were in the AFC Championship game last year. I don't think 120 minutes of bad football is going to just determine who they are. I think Joe Burrow is, again, a top 2 quarterback in the league. I said top 2 player. I know you said Micah Parsons in passing, and I never commented on it because I really didn't hear it at the time. But I still regard that. I think I would take, if we had a draft, Mahomes is 1. I'm taking Burrow 2 over anyone in the league. That could be an argument for another day. But even if he's hurt, I have confidence that he's going to do well. I have confidence in Aaron Rodgers that they're going to do well when they need to. Brady, Mahomes, Manning, like all the great quarterbacks, even in spots where you really need them and they are him, I have confidence that they're going to win. And this is a spot, and I don't think the Rams are overwhelming. It's not like they're the 49ers, and you need. I think that a very good to very good Burrow can win this game. I don't think he needs to be an all-time great Burrow. And that's where the leg would come in.
What say you to the fact that the coaches seem to want to hold him out of this game and he's choosing to play? So all what you said is very well and good, but what say you to he's doing a 3 to 5 step drop and that calf just doesn't feel the way it should? That can all matter, but I mean, if it's if it was like a hand injury or, an offhand injury, that's one thing. But when you're planting back there and they do still got Aaron Donald, they still got a formidable defense. It's shown to be better than what we expected so far. And this line hasn't been great. The run game hasn't been great for the Bengals.
I do think that obviously he knows his body better than anybody else knows his body. A doctor can tell him one thing, obviously, or whatnot, but I mean, if he was that bad, a week 3 game, they would not be able. They'd have to sit him out. If he's good enough to be able to play, obviously as I say, they want. Obviously, if Joe Burrow is eager to play, but he really had a terrible injury, like he's gonna have to sit. If it's that bad, he would sit. So he lets me know that obviously he can gut through it, and maybe afterwards we see that he really is on one leg and that he really shouldn't be playing, and he's showing heart, and maybe we see that. But with it only being week 3, with it being I know it's a must-win game, but obviously, as Burrow said last year, every single year I'm playing, I have a chance to win. So my championship window is my career. Him thinking that this is like the last hurrah of what this iteration of the team, I would think he would sit out if he couldn't play.
We will soon find out.
That's my personal opinion.
It's also week 3, so if there's any time to sit out, it's right now.
So that's what's making me believe he's at least 85, 90%. And if I get 90%, 85, 90% of Joe Burrow, I feel that they can win just about any game.
I don't know. I just
again
the people reporting on this game, like NFL reporters, every talk has been like it's gonna be a game time decision. Coaches would like basically like if they lose this game that he is gonna sit. Like he's like it literally sounds like the season is tonight for them. That's what I don't know. I just
and if that is the case,
and it's
I feel a little more confident. I feel a little more confident. If he's that determined to win the game and knows that it's that important, then I do feel confident.
Keenan's in that. Like just negative press. Even more confident.
Well, I have faith in. They're just athletes you have faith in. Like I just have Joe Burrow's one of the athletes that you have faith in. If he says something, he's cool. Like LeBron. I'm saying all the greats, but obviously, like there's a lot of athletes that if they say something, I'm gonna have faith in it. Luka, he says something, I'm going to have faith in what Luka says. He's a great athlete, and that's a better comparison to someone like Joe Burrow.
But I don't know if he said anything. I don't know if Joe Burrow said anything.
Joe Burrow wanting and forcing his way to play is all he needs to say. That's it. That's saying, like, I need to play in this game. I'm going to play in this game. That's saying
So Bengals win 30-10? Is that what you're saying?
I already had a 28-23. I think it's going to be a tough game.
I don't remember.
I was going to say 28-23. It's going to be a very tough game. I don't think it's going to be easy at all. I think you're going to see early on how his legs feeling. He's going to try to probably get the ball out quick. Joe Mixon could be in play a lot today because I could see a lot of swing passes. I think it might be more of a Jamar Chase than a T. Higgins game because Jamar has a quicker window to get open. He's had a better first step than T. Higgins, but we'll see. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, it's going to really establish early with the run game, and then if they can get the ball and get out to a lead, it's going to change everything. Because obviously, if the Rams get up and he's going to have to drop back 45 times on the leg, it might be different than if he has to do it 27. But it's 8 o'clock. We'll find out in a few minutes here. We'll find out.
To say the least, we talked about it on 2 platforms last week. I'm very skeptical. I am very skeptical of tonight. And the reports are apparently making you more positive, even though they're saying, hey, he's more injured than what he's showing. That's giving me more they're going to lose. But yeah, like you said, we'll see. And we'll be potting about it. And
maybe it's blind optimism, but you know what? Me and SZA will stay blind until it's true. It says we'll just stay blind, I guess. Oh man. Well,
any final
was
thoughts?
Good.
I got one final thought.
Oh, Tim.
Nothing to do with what you guys have been talking about. T.J. Watt, greater sign, Micah Parsons.
Oh, that's
fine with it.
I'm just
racist.
Saying. No. A lot of us had Micah as Defensive Player of the Year, but I think TJ's off to a better start. I think he's going to sustain it. I think not seeing TJ Watt for a lot of the season last year kind of made us forget how dominant he is. He's a force, and I think he's going to probably be Defensive Player of the Year this year, just off of 3 games. 2 games.
That's fair. Right now he has 6 sacks already this season.
Yep.
But like T.J. Watt's a freak. I thought you were
gonna say T.J. Watt great. I just thought he was gonna say T.J. Watt greater sign J.J. Watt is what I thought he was going with there.
Oh, I think you could make that argument in a couple of years.
Yeah, give him a little bit more time. He already should. I think he should have 2 Defensive Player of the Years and not only 1 right now.
And he's tied the sack record. Like he's in the talks. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer. He's gonna be a great. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, Micah, I think also because he's a Cowboy and he's electric. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's not. 13 sacks and then 13 and a half sacks is like 5th all time for the first 2 seasons. Number 1 was my guy, Aldon Smith, who had 33, but then we know what happened to Aldon Smith. But he was big time when he was in the league. But I know, like, obviously we have a big craze around Micah because we see it as, again, it's electric, and you don't see the Steelers as much as you see the Cowboys. Obviously, the Steelers are still a premier franchise in the league, so you still see them. But T.J. Watt, 7 sacks, and then 13, 14 and a half, 15, 22 and a half, only 5.5 last year because he was injured for most of the year, and then back to 6. Like, he is a monster. There is no reason why every day he's not on the field thinking he's the best football player on the field. Like, Myles Garrett's in that conversation where he should think that. Obviously, Micah, Aaron Donald, where I don't want to forget and make it seem like he's not still probably the greatest defensive player of our generation. So,
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, you're good. All I was going to say was basically that I don't have a problem with that at all. Like, and obviously sometimes we just get caught up in ourselves, and sometimes we almost don't sit back and just think to ourselves, like, this is sustained work that he's been putting in forever. TJ's been great.
In the Colts-Browns game, or not Colts, sorry, Titans-Browns, there was a play where the Titans had 2 players who were just traveling to Myles Garrett's side of the field. So right before the play snapped, Myles Garrett just ran to the other side of the field, and those 2 guys had to get up and go to the other side of the field. And then they got there, and he just ran back to the other side of the field. They got to delay a game on it because of it. They had no idea what to do. It was so funny. He's just running
hilarious.
back and forth.
I did not see that.
That's pretty funny.
That's crazy. And I was gonna say he's another person who is just like, him being in Cleveland sometimes overshadows how great he is.
Exactly.
I was gonna say the last 5 seasons been 10+ sacks every season. Like, him being in Cleveland and not being on a winning team sometimes takes away from his greatness, because obviously we talk about winning. We talk about everything about winning, but yeah, so I do like that. I do like that. All right.
Dope. Tim, come back on Thursday for the game picks. I know last week you had a birthday party, but if you want to join us Thursday,
I'll keep it in my mind. I totally blanked, and then when you texted me, I had already committed, and I was like, "Oh shit!" But I'm totally down. Make some game picks. Worries. I texted Kyle after I saw his picks, and I was like, your Denver Miami pick was only off by like 40 points. That's pretty close.
Just missed it. Just missed it.
Yeah, just missed it.
Listen, this was the Warner Brothas podcast. Oh, my fault, Keenan. My fault. Did you want to get something
you're
before
good. You're good. Go.
You sure? You sure? This your moment.
No, I was just about to say this was the Warner Brothas podcast, so you're good.
This was the Warner Brothas podcast. This was Kyle. This was Keenan. This was Tim. We will be back Thursday, picking the Week 4 games. Probably talking a little more about some of the games we skipped over today. Catch the Warner Brothas podcast on Live Take. Download the Live Take app. You'll see me and Keenan and maybe some friends debating basketball, football, and whatever else comes up. Maybe some UFC. Who knows? But certainly NBA, NFL. Might be 5 minutes, might be 10, might be more than that. So you want more Warner Brothas podcast content? Go to Live Take. Download the app. Follow, like, subscribe. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all that. We're out of here. Enjoy the games, fellas.